Welcome to Social Media Week. This presentation is about building community and engaging audiences. This will kind of specifically focus in on if you have a department or an organization or an event or something like that, how to get people involved with it and how to get students to interact. It can be applied to a lot of stuff if you have your own individual account, but I think for the purposes of this, a lot of it's talking about how do you get kind of those departmental websites or Facebook or Twitter accounts, how do you get students to interact with you, because that seems to be a large challenge once folks get started on social media. To introduce myself, my name is Jonathan Bragg. I'm a residence director. I run Durgan Hall here at Bridgewater State, and I'm also on Twitter. If you want to continue the conversation later, Jonathan Bragg at Jonathan Bragg. So that's twitter.com/Jonathan Bragg, B-R-A-G-G. So what I did to get started was I started to think about how I engage in social media and what aspects of social media I find that I actually connect with. And so I highlighted a few that I thought about. The top one on the left is Bridgewater State University's Our Res Life and Housing page. That's on Facebook, and I think we do a really great job of reaching out to students. We have about 800 plus students that follow it. Obviously some of them are our staff and our students, our student staff, but a lot of them are our resident students. And I think one of the reasons it's successful is because we push out a lot of content. This week we're doing some trivia about our housing selection process, but we also are running Recyclemania in our residence halls and posting the results of that, as well as putting out all sorts of different announcements and events going up. And one of the reasons I think it's most successful is because we have a lot of different staff members who contribute different things to it and focus in on areas of their own interest. In the middle on the right there, the Association for Student Conduct Administration. This is in higher education, folks who work with student conduct, so a lot of folks in residence life or in the offices of student conduct. They really started building up this year their Twitter presence, and I think they've done a really good job from an educational perspective on getting folks talking and communicating about things that you wouldn't normally see on social media, and especially like something like student conduct. It's kind of a very niche group of people that are interested in that, but they started a hashtag where it's ASCA chats, and every Friday they have a conversation about a topic on student conduct. And so they're a group that has really kind of ramped up and seen a little bit of progress over the last year in trying something new, getting people to talk about something that's kind of a niche area. On the right there are two things that I enjoy. One is House of Cards, the television show from Netflix, and they did this social media campaign because their second season came out on Valentine's Day, and they posted Valentine's cards on their page. Invites you to watch season 2, and that was something that got a lot of people like sharing it and liking it, and it was kind of all over Facebook at the time. And then on the bottom right, True Detective, which is HBO's show, which is one of those shows that kind of got a lot of word of mouth throughout the season. And what they did, which is really interesting, is they post these pictures that are also can be Facebook banners. So a lot of people were utilizing that. And then on the bottom left is the Patriots. The Patriots do a ton of social media stuff pretty much before and after every game. And recently they've been doing these like playlists of like what some of the favorite players and coaches are using. And so again, I was just thinking about like what are some of the social media different companies or different departments that I watch and look at that I actually engage with, and what differentiates them between. So I encourage you to think throughout the presentation about, are there any kind of, in social media on Facebook or on Twitter, are there different companies or different educational universities or the departments that you follow and watch and you think are interesting, or are you not connecting in that way? So to get us started to talk about community, what is community? Because this is about building community, so to start to kind of know what community is. Community kind of broadly, this is the Webster definition. It's a group of people that live in the same place or have a particular characteristic in common, and or a feeling of fellowship with others as a result of sharing a common attitude, interests, and goals. So that's pretty simplistic. And I simplify it myself to think of community as when you have something in common and that there's some investment in that. And it can be investment and commonality are without, it can be good or bad. So we could say in our residence halls in Shea Durgan, a lot of students feel very passionate about living in Shea Durgan. A lot of upper class students will say, I lived in Shea Durgan my freshman year, and they hold a lot of passion to that because they have that in common with a lot of other first year students who lived on campus, and they were really invested in their time here and they got a lot out of it. But at the same time, if a student, an apartment off campus, they throw a party every weekend and the same people go every week, that's still a community because they have that in common. They go to the party every weekend and they are invested because they keep going. So it's kind of without judgment. It can be, a community is any sort of group of people who have something in interest in common and they're invested in it. So that's what community is broadly. And so when we think about developing community through social media, it's how do we get students who have that thing in common with us that we're trying to promote and have an interest in investing in it. And so for a department, for example, in the honors department, if you have students that are in the honors program, how do you get them to kind of connect more? And so to start us off, to talk about kind of the basics of what to think about yourself or your own organizations, your social media accounts. The number one thing you have to ask yourself is, why do you have a social media account? Why does it exist? If you can't answer why you have a social media account, nothing else matters, because if you can't explain it to me, you can't explain it to a student, they're not going to follow it. So they don't get why they would follow it. It's going to be a hard sell to anybody else to follow it. So you need to talk within your own organization about, why do we have this? In our residence life and housing, we have it because for a few different reasons. We can connect with our students who are on campus now, provide them information, get them to connect with one another. But also, it's kind of outward facing. If we have a student who's maybe a commuter and is interested in living on campus, they can see what it's about and see why they may want to join our community. Or it could be for somebody like a parent who's interested in what we're doing. And there isn't a ton of information on BSU's website right now because of the redesign. So this is a great way to publicize some information that students or parents who don't have access to the internet can see. Because unless your Facebook group or your Twitter account is private, which probably isn't the case for an organization, it will let anybody see it and kind of know what's going on. So you need to know why that exists. And then what I would do is take stock of who's following you or who's liking you on Facebook. The lingo depends on which social media account you're using. But is anybody following you? One of the most difficult things, I think, is sometimes we put the cart before the horse and we kind of develop a Facebook group and we invite all the staff and then no students follow. And I've seen this happen at a previous institution. We were trying to get students to be more involved on campus with athletics. And so the staff created a whole page to get everybody excited about it. They invited all the staff. At the end of the day, all we had was staff because there was no student buy-in. So why, if a student isn't interested in doing that to begin with, they're not going to join the page. So take account of who's following you. Do you have some students on there already? Do you not have any students? Is it all staff members? Is it all people that are kind of required to view it? Take account of that, and then we can figure out, is it because, look at the first step, why does it exist? If the student's looking at that and going, I don't know why I would join this, then that's going to be an issue. You're not going to be able to resolve that until you know why your own account exists, why you have it out there, why you're trying to promote what you're doing. But if it's a problem of you're not connecting with people, we'll talk more about that moving forward. How do you engage people and how do you get them to get more involved on your page? So the next question is, how do you engage your community, if at all? For most people, this is through posts on Facebook or tweets on Twitter. Those are the two primary sources that we see with most of our organizations. But if you're not putting out content, that might be an issue for a student. If a student goes on a Twitter account and they see it hasn't been updated since 2012, they're going to feel like it's irrelevant, especially like a first-year student, because they're going, I was like a junior in high school the last time that was updated. So putting out some content on a regular basis is going to be a key, and we'll talk about that moving forward. And how is your community utilizing social media, if at all? So that's kind of, you have students in there maybe now. Are they liking your posts? Are they commenting? Or are they just kind of sitting there and watching it? When we talk about this, there's kind of a chicken and egg argument about, well, if I don't, if nobody's following, why would I put out consistent content? Because it's kind of like a waste of time if nobody's following. But then nobody will follow because there's no content. So what do you do first? I think that you have to focus on what you can control. You can't control your followers, how many people watch, but you can control the content. It's kind of an if you build it, they will come mentality. You have to start with some content and show people that you're serious about it so that they kind of buy into it. And so at the very base, if you're starting for your organization or you're looking to update it, some basic things that you need to have done before you start trying to get students to buy into it, you need to have your basic content first. So that's a photo or a logo, depending on if it's for yourself or for an organization, a link to your website for more information, and just start putting out posts. Just start saying, hey, this is coming up. We have applications for this. These are some things that we're getting involved with. Any sort of event. Literally anything that you would maybe send out a community announcement for, or you're posting to your website, you could also throw up on a Facebook page, and that's what students are looking for. It's just that quick blurb of information. Talk to your key players. There are going to be people that have more buy-in. They may be student leaders or student workers in your office. They may be staff members. Again, it's good to have some staff members, but you don't want to be the entire student affairs staff and no students. So figure out which students you think would be really interested in following you on Facebook and reach out to them, send them an email. If you have a student group, it can be the same thing. You can shoot it out to all your students. Yeah, just continue to develop that regular content. Regular updates are the key for students. I don't think it has to be all the time, but you need to put out content once in a while. Another thing you do is incentivize following. And a lot of people think like this just means money. And it can be. We do, like this week, we're doing a contest about our housing selection process that we're offering $5 in flex dollars. And so if you have the budget to do that, it could be just a small thing. Even if you do it for a week, $5 a day, ask some trivia questions, that's like $25, but you may get quite a few followers through that, people to jump into it because it's an easy way to get 5 flex dollars. But you can also use information or knowledge as kind of a way to incentivize. So if you have a big program coming up, you can say, we're going to announce this first on Facebook on this day, because then a lot of students will want to follow that Facebook post or the Facebook group or the Twitter account or whatever you're using to see it first, because they want that information first. You just have to be careful about not sort of false incentivizing it. And I call it like the late night news problem or the local news problem, which is if you ever watch like TV at night, they'll say like, oh, tune in at 11, we'll tell you who the Red Sox just traded for. Well, I'll just go on, Twitter and find out who they traded for. If it's out there and it's public knowledge already, you can't be like, oh, come to our Facebook page, you're gonna find out about this event if you've already sent out a community announcement about it. If you're gonna incentivize it, you have to kind of stick to it and push that information out first. But it's a good way to get students if they really wanna find out about something that you're doing, or if you give some sort of priority for people that follow you on Facebook or things like that. It's just a way to get some people to start following you. And so the next point is about followers. I think followers is very apt terminology in social media, because I think a lot of people worry, I have a lot of followers. We have, on Res Life and Housing, we have 800, but we don't get too many comments on many posts. And so people feel like, I'm putting this stuff out here, but nobody's really paying attention to it, or I don't feel like they're paying attention to it. But actually through Facebook now, you can see if you are a group administrator or content creator, if you're one of the people that can post to a Facebook page as that Facebook group, you can see how many people have looked at it and seen it. And so I think most students aren't going to be the people who go out and post on your page all the time, but they will be people who are reading and consuming that information and just kind of keeping it in the back of their head. And so that kind of brings me back to our first question is, how do you engage in social media? So when you think about that, are you somebody that comments on Facebook posts like from companies or from other departments, or do you have any thoughts about that?
Regarding Facebook posts, I could see that I would like, if that's something a company puts up or anything like that that's engaging, then we engage with it. Or sometimes you can share it to like let more people know about something. I think that's something that I do, but it's mostly, I guess, regarding like just enlightening people on like what's really going on in the world, or if there's like all of a sudden like mad cow disease, it's like be aware or something like that. It's more of an awareness, but I could definitely see like how you can use it definitely to engage the students too, because then they see that you're sharing something that you share on the page shows that you're actually contributing to it and you're supporting what you're part of.
Yeah, I think kind of like you said, I think a lot of people will share. If you post something really interesting, or even we do this in Res Life, like if the main page posts halls are closing this Friday, I have a Durgan Hall page for my building, and I'll just share it so that the folks can see it who maybe don't follow our main account, sort of both accounts. But I think it is hard to get people to comment and like interact, especially students.
Yeah, because I feel like Twitter is something that you have to comment. You know what I mean? A lot of people like to comment, retweet, really simple. But like when it comes to Facebook, if some people do read it, sometimes don't comment on it.
Yeah.
Like that. And I think there's no way for you to know who's looking at it.
Yeah.
But you can't, because I bet you, like, if you put something that like profanity up there, a lot of people may comment on it that you would expect and may not comment. Or if you put like a big price, you say like $100 for like the first 50 people who comment on this.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you have any thoughts?
I mean, I know personally, I'm more of a passive observer on Facebook. And I noticed, I like I'm the administrator on one of the administrators on the honors program Facebook. And I like seeing, they give you the number of people.
Yeah, the reach.
It's reassuring that people are in fact seeing it, because it's very rarely that we have a comment. We do get likes, on the stuff that we post, but sometimes it feels like we're just talking into an empty room. But seeing that people have actually seen the posts, I like that. So I know that I'm at least reaching 40 people for a particular post or whatever it is.
Yeah, and I think you can tie this into with like assessment a little bit if you ever do events. Yeah. We started doing that a little bit, like how did you find out about this? And if you even give them the check boxes, like I heard it from a friend, I saw it in the announcements, I saw it on Facebook, you may find through assessment that a lot of people are reading it. And I think a lot of people, like you said, are sort of those passive observers who, and I do this as well, like you only have maybe 5 to 10 minutes to like look at Facebook or look at Twitter. And so you just kind of like read it and you're like, yeah, good to know this is coming up, but like I don't have time to comment or read on it. And so I kind of made this triangle, like I think this is how it pretty much works for most people. It starts with people who are like non-users or non-connected at the bottom. So those are the students here on campus who they're not in the honors program, or they don't know about it, or they don't have social media. There are obviously some issues of access. Social media is a useful tool, but it can't replace face-to-face interaction, all we do. Even in residence life housing, we have 800 students on there, but there's 3,000 plus that live on campus. So we're not reaching every single student through social media. So there's a lot of people who either aren't interested, they aren't interested in social media in general, they aren't interested in following you, or they're just not interested in your program or what you have to offer. And that's kind of a big base of a large group of people. And then as people get more invested, you have kind of those casual users. Online, they're freaking called lurkers. And that's the terminology online, is the people who are there watching, but they don't ever do anything. They're like literally lurking in the shadows. They don't like things, they don't comment on things, but they read it and they know what's going on. And I think we see that a lot with our students. They all know what's going on in our communities, but they don't always interact or post, but they're always sort of watching. And that's a huge group. And I think that's most people on social media, because you're interested in stuff. And again, I do the same thing. You like a Facebook page and you watch those little like updates, but you never like comment on it or whatever. But it's like, oh, it's good to know that the Patriots are playing this Sunday. But I'm not going to get into an argument about it. They're better than the Steelers on a Facebook page. It's not very helpful. But that's like a huge middle section of people, is they just sort of sit there and watch. But I think they do take in that information and they are reading it. And you can see it through that reach, that they're reading it and they're processing it probably in some regard, but they're not doing anything with it. And you kind of get those like experts. Those are the people who are like, almost like your fans. They're the people who like comment on everything. Like a lot of our RAs in Res Life like that, like they'll just comment on like every post or say something or be excited about whatever's going on. And those are people that are just super invested. And those are the best people to get like involved first, because once you kind of have that, they can kind of pull in more people. Talking about increasing engagement, so where there are opportunities, give them opportunity for feedback. We like to ask a lot of like questions on our page. So like on the during page, we may ask, where are you hoping to live next year? It's not directly related to like any of our programs or anything that's going on in the building, but just a way to like reach out to people and let them know like we're interested in them as people, and we're not just doing it to promote our own stuff. Like tell us a little bit about what you're interested in, or what are you looking forward to about whatever. It could be, what are you looking forward to about our program next week? What are you looking forward to about spring break or summer break? It just kind of lets people feel like they're not just talking to like a Facebook page, they're talking to like a person on the other side of it. And it's just a good way, I think, to interact. And you can even throw that in at the end sometimes. Like we've been using that, we're holding a conference here over the summer, and we've been throwing up stuff like, During the conference, there's a run, a 5K run. So, hey, the 5K run's 10 weeks from now. What are you doing to prepare for the conference? So some people are like, oh, I'm starting to train to run an event. Some people are like, I'm just excited to go to the event. It's just a way to get people to talk about it. So you kind of combine it with, this is that information. What are you excited about with this? It gives them an opportunity to feel like they can kind of chime in. Because sometimes if it's just like, we have an event coming on Thursday. What is there to say about it? Like, either I'm going to go to it or I'm not. With text, especially on Facebook, if you ever notice, like, the bulk text, like, whenever you see that, like, click here to, like, see more, it's like, oh, this is a really long post. And I think that's how students feel, too. It's like, why is there so much written here? And I feel like that every time I see one on Facebook, you get to, like, that certain, like, length, and it's like, click here to see more. And I'm like, oh, why is it so long? When you have that, you want to try to be as concise as possible. If you have a lot of information about something, like an event, you should probably link to your website and say like, hey, we're having this event on Thursday. Here's a link to more information. Here's a link to the flyer. Because I think people just, they're looking at this in quick bursts. Like many of us, you have 5-10 minutes to look. You're not going to be able to like sit there and like scroll. Like it's just too much information. It's information overload. So really focus on keeping it short. I think Twitter is great in that regard. It really has started to train me to like say things in 140 characters or less, because you just have to like get it out there in a very short burst. And so try to do that on Facebook too, because that's how a lot of our students interact with people, is they want that quick, what do I need to know? And like, let's move on. Humor can be helpful, but it really depends on the context and the content. Like if you're funny and you think you're funny, like it may be appropriate, but it may not be. JetBlue on their Twitter, they are fairly humorous. That's kind of their thing. Like if you tweet at them, they'll tweet back at you. Somebody a few weeks ago said like, oh, I wish I could have flown with you, but you don't fly to this airport. And they're like, oh, we'll take you back. Like, we're sorry you had to fly with somebody else. But they try to be funny and they make a lot of funny comments. But you can also see when somebody complains or somebody says something serious, they kind of turn it off and they're like, this is why we did what we did. So it's kind of knowing your tone and knowing when it's okay to goof around with people and when it's not. But I think students kind of appreciate that when it's kind of humorous. And sometimes we'll post humorous things up on our Res Life page and whatnot, just to get some students to have fun with it a little bit. Again, asking for that feedback and then learning the lingo. So like here we use the hashtag BSU Life for Twitter. Posting with BSU Life, we'll get a lot of response. Our Bridgewater State Twitter account has been like really picking up on that. And like I posted a picture on Instagram a little while back, and I put that hashtag, and like they commented, they're like, oh, an awesome picture, and they retweeted it. So it's a great way to get kind of other offices on campus too, to notice what you're doing if you use things like that. So know what's popular, know what's going to get kind of picked up by other parts of the university. And again, on Twitter, BSU Life is a really great way because a lot of people follow it, a lot of departments follow it, a lot of them will retweet what you're doing so that people can see. With that feedback and response, kind of one of the areas of concern in social media is that people will give you feedback or response. And so sometimes it opens us up to dialogue or criticism. It doesn't happen a ton, but every once in a while on Twitter, we'll get sort of the rude, snarky comment aimed at us, or just kind of aimed at the BSU Life. They'll say, I don't like how the housing process here works, housing lottery works. And sometimes they can do it anonymously, especially through Twitter. People can say whatever, and you're not even sure who they are. But remember that when somebody has like a strong response like that, it's a result of they're invested in the community. So like they obviously feel very strongly about it. You don't get fired up about things you don't care about. So if somebody's really fired up about something on Twitter, it means that they feel strongly about it. And so there must be a reason for it. And so what I suggest is just look for an opportunity if you see that, if somebody's conversation to a real world meeting. There's no use in having an argument out here in the hallway. It's the same on social media. You don't want to have like an argument on social media, especially from an account, like an official account of your organization or of your department, because it just looks bad. You can't win a social media argument. You're going to lose because somebody's just going to point out that you're having an argument with somebody and it's going to look bad. I think the best advice I've ever heard is just every time you post something, would you want it to be on the front page of the Boston Globe? Like this argument may seem funny or whatever to you at the time, but like, is it going to look good if the news media picks up on it? And it's like, why is this person being such a jerk to a student? So just be thoughtful about that. And again, that's why I try to pull conversations in if I see it happen, if somebody's upset. Even in our hall, sometimes like we have different floors and sometimes people will post they're upset about something in one of the halls and it's like, hey, why don't you come down to my office? Why don't you shoot me an email? We can meet and talk about it. It's much more productive than trying to have this argument over social media because it just doesn't work. And I think lastly, knowing your limits. If something is just like absurd or something's really dangerous or you're worried about something, because that can happen on social media where somebody just has some sort of, somebody's going to burn down your building. Okay, well, that needs to go to the police. So know where you have to kind of stop and cut the line, and also know that you don't have to respond 24 hours a day. Even though you're on social media, students will respond at 3 in the morning to your posts. You shouldn't feel like there shouldn't be an expectation that you're responding to the posts at all hours of the night and all that. Just do as much as you can to interact. I always recommend trying to respond to every comment the next business day if possible, even to say like thanks or whatever, just depending on what they say. I think people appreciate knowing that like they got some sort of feedback. And now with Facebook even, you can put like @ and you can type in their name and it will let them know that you've tagged them. So it will let them know. We just had somebody who won one of our trivia. So we tagged them and said, hey, you won. And then she had a question and we tagged her again and said like, hey, this is what you need to know. And you can do that without even being friends with them on a Facebook page that you're an administrator of. So it's a great way to like interact with people one-on-one and be like, hey, if you want to talk more about this, send me an email. Consider having multiple administrators. In most offices, there's more than one person. In student organizations, there's an e-board or whatnot, so you can have multiple people run it and provide that content. It makes it much easier when you kind of split it up. Twitter, decide your following policy. If you use Twitter, it sounds kind of foolish, but like, are you going to follow every student that follows you on Twitter? And for many, like in the honors program, it may not be a huge problem. In Res Life, it may not be a problem. But like if you're in the Office of Student Conduct, a student may not want you following them. Like all of a sudden, the Office of Student Conduct is following you, or the police department here. You notice like the police department, Conduct doesn't have a Twitter account, but the police do. The police don't follow students. If you look, they only follow other police departments and stuff. Because I think like if you were a student, all of a sudden you get that email, it's like, BSU police is following you. You'd probably be like, oh, geez, what did I do? So you got to think about that. Like, how are you going to deal with that? Are you going to, try to follow people who are private on Twitter? Like some students are trying to not have administrators do the thing. So it's important that you kind of have a policy about like, are you going to follow people? Are you not going to follow people? How are you going to do that? And just kind of know what your process is. It's something that a lot of people don't think about, but I think it's important to like, just make a decision about what you're going to do and stick with it. So that there's no like question about like why you're following some people and not others or anything like that. Facebook, liking is easy. Like with our trivia questions, we just go and like every single response because then people are like, oh, they noticed that I commented. It's just an easy way for them to feel included. Giveaways are pretty easy. This week with the social media week, we're doing Instagram contests each day. And that's just a cool way because a lot of contests for either like trivia, which is also another good idea, but a lot of them are like writing something. And Instagram especially gives people an opportunity who maybe their strength is more in being artistic or, it's just giving like a different type of student the opportunity to present something. And pictures can be really, really cool. And we had a really good one yesterday that won for like the best view on campus. So it's definitely something if you want to do something a little bit different, like ask people to take pictures at an event or send them a picture of them hanging out in your hall or in something in your program. And then as far as prizes, we give away flex dollars quite a bit because it's easy and it can be small and people still do it. Any sort of small giveaways. I'm fond of like if you ever have too much stuff from an event, like if you order like 200 of some like little giveaway for an event, but then you don't give them all away, give them away as a prize for your like Facebook incentive program because then it gets it out of your office and people are still getting it and it's like something for them to try to compete for because a lot of people like that sort of like competition and being able to win. And sometimes even recognition is just enough for people or even just saying like, hey, so-and-so is our 100th follower or whatever, that gets people excited. Photos, we found on our BSU, our Res Life page, the photos get way more views than our text posts. And so this is a photo I took back in the fall semester of just like from Shea Durgan. And so sometimes the photos are just like, people are way more interested in them. We found a lot of parents like photos of like, because they're looking for their students and different events and stuff. So if you're looking for a different way to kind of post stuff, photos is a really good way to kind of draw traffic. It seems to be also how like Facebook and Facebook especially prioritizes them. And even now Twitter, if you're looking on Twitter like on a PC, they make the photos like bigger than the regular tweets because they actually expand them. So it actually may make more sense in some cases for you to throw up photos. It's also cool for like if you have a flyer for an event, just turn it into an image file and then post it on your Facebook page or on your Twitter account, and it will show up on everybody's feed. And then just making sure that your content is staying up to date, especially with the changeover on the BSU website. You a lot of times have to go back and make sure that like if somebody goes and looks at something that's maybe a little bit older, is the link still active or has it changed? Especially like info pages too. Sometimes that changes and nobody ever looks at it. So maybe taking some time to look at that. Changes to any of your like policies or procedures, you may want to delete. And we've gone in sometimes and deleted like older posts if they're no longer relevant, or if like a policy or something's changed, how we do something, so that people don't get confused, especially if they like Google it and it pops up so that they don't hit that wrong information. And then just every year, like making sure that if you have dates that change, like there's nothing worse than seeing like the wrong year on something, even if you like that's not how you intended it, or you change the date, but just making sure that the dates are right for a lot of like application processes or things like that, events as well.